This AI boom, it's really something, huh? Some companies are, well, they're making a killing.
Yeah, absolutely.
But today we're looking at a company that's not just, you know, riding the wave, they're kind of building the surfboard.
Oh, interesting.
This is Supermicro Computer, SMCI on the stock ticker, and they're the ones making the servers, the systems, all the stuff that powers these giant AI data centers we keep hearing about.
The infrastructure, right.
Exactly. The picks and shovels of the AI gold rush, you could say.
Makes sense.
Now, you've got a big date coming up, February 25th, and you're trying to figure out, is SMCI, is it a gamble? Or is it, like a hidden gem or something?
Big decision.
So let's break it all down.
Sounds good.
The thing is, this company, for a while, they were like soaring,
Yeah, they were on fire.
Last year, they even did better than Nvidia for a bit. Can you believe that?
I know. It's pretty remarkable, especially when you think about what they actually do.
Right. So let's start there with the basics.
Okay, sure.
What exactly does Supermicro Computer do?
Well, they build servers and they do these full rack scale solutions, but their specialty is AI data centers.
So they're not just building any old servers. They're building the ones specifically for all this AI stuff.
Yeah, think of it like they're providing the backbone, the infrastructure, that lets all that AI magic happen.
Okay, so they're in a hot market for sure, but what makes them different? Why are they the ones winning all these customers?
Well, a couple of things. I think first, they've got these really strong partnerships with the top chip companies, especially Nvidia.
So they're plugged into the cutting edge.
Exactly. It's like they always have the newest, best tools,
So they're not just building the infrastructure, they're making sure it's powered by the most advanced tech out there.
Right, they're not messing around.
And then what's the second thing?
Oh, right. They're building blocks technology.
Building blocks.
Yeah, it means they can customize solutions for each client. Whatever they need.
So it's not one size fits all. They actually tailor make these systems.
Exactly.
Interesting.
It's kind of like a high-tech Lego set for AI data centers.
Uh-huh. I like that. So you give them the blueprint and they build it just for you.
Yeah, precisely. And that's a huge advantage, especially in AI, because it's, things are changing so fast.
Right. Always got to be on the cutting edge.
Exactly.
Now, all these data centers, they generate a ton of heat, right? Oh, that's got to be a problem.
Oh, it's a major issue.
So how are they dealing with that?
Well, that's where direct liquid cooling comes in. DLC, they call it.
DLC, huh?
Yeah, it's basically a much more efficient way to cool down these supercomputers.
Because the old way, just using air, that's not cutting it anymore.
No, it's just not enough for these AI workloads.
So SMCIs, they're betting on DLC as the cooling solution of the future.
Yeah, pretty much.
And what makes them think it's going to be such a big deal?
Well, they're predicting that in the next few years, something like 15% to 30% of all new data centers, they'll use DLC.
Wow. That's a big chunk.
And they're trying to be the leader in that market.
But they're not the only ones, right?
Yeah.
There's got to be other companies working on DLC too.
Oh, yeah, definitely. The competition is, it's heating up, you could say.
Uh-huh. I see what you did there.
But SMCI, they've got a good head start. They were early to adopt DLC, and they've already got those relationships with the chip makers. Plus, they can customize everything.
So they're in a strong position.
I'd say so.
Okay, so there's definitely potential there, but you mentioned earlier there have been some bumps in the road for SMCI.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And, our listener, they're trying to assess the risks here. So let's talk about those.
Okay, well, the biggest problem lately has been this short report. It came from Hindenburg Research, and it raised some pretty serious questions about SMCI's their accounting practices.
Yeah, that report, it really shook things up.
It did.
So how did SMCI respond to all that?
Well, they immediately launched an independent investigation, and they brought in a new auditor.
Okay, so they're taking it seriously.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But the problem is it's led to these delays in filing their financial reports, the 10K and 10Q,
And I'm guessing that hasn't gone over well?
No, Nasdaq actually issued a non-compliance letter.
Uh-oh?
Yeah, it's basically a warning like, hey, get your filings in order, or you could be delisted.
Delisting, that's a big deal.
It is. It adds a whole lot of uncertainty for investors.
And this is where that February 25th deadline comes in, right?
Exactly. That's the deadline Nasdaq gave them to file those missing reports.
So no wonder our listener has that date circled.
It's make or break time for SMCI.
All right, so we've got the basics of their business, their strengths, their potential in this whole AI thing, and then these accounting concerns that are, well, they're causing some headaches.
It's a mixed bag for sure.
But there's more to this story, right?
There is. Remember that independent investigation we talked about?
Yeah.
Well, their findings, those could change everything for SMCI.
Okay, now we're getting to the good stuff.
Yeah, this is where it gets interesting.
All right, let's dive in.
So the committee, they just announced their findings, and it's good news for SMCI. They didn't find any evidence of fraud or anything like that.
Oh, wow. That's a huge relief, I bet.
Yeah, definitely. Not just for the company, but for, anyone who's thinking about investing.
Right. Right. But what about those delayed financial reports? Does this mean everything's like all clear on that front?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, the committee said there was no wrongdoing, but there's still a chance those reports might have some surprises in them.
Okay, so there could still be something unexpected.
Yeah, but SMCI, they said they don't expect any big changes from the unaudited versions they released earlier.
So it's kind of wait and see. We know there's
Right.
no fraud, but the actual numbers, those are still up in the air.
Exactly, and that's why this February 25th, it's so important.
Right, that deadline.
If they can, if they can meet that deadline and file those reports without any major red flags,
Then what?
then it could be like a turning point,
Okay, so a lot is riding on this date for sure. But how would it actually, how would meeting or missing this deadline, how would that affect their stock?
Well, right now the market's definitely pricing in a lot of uncertainty.
Makes sense.
SMCI, they're trading at like 10 times forward earnings.
That's pretty low, right?
Yeah, it's low, even considering all the stuff that's been going on.
So if they hit the deadline, everything looks good, their stock could really jump up.
It could, yeah, but on the other hand, if they miss it, well, that could really damage investor confidence, especially after all this scrutiny.
Right. It would make people wonder if they can even, get their act together.
Exactly. So the question for you is, how much weight do you put on this February 25th deadline?
It's interesting because on the one hand, we have this company, they've got a good track record, they're growing. They've got these partnerships.
Right, and they're leading the way in DLC, that's a huge potential market.
And then on the other hand, there's this accounting stuff, the delayed reports, the whole delisting thing hanging over their heads.
It's complicated, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's not just about the technology and the market, it's about management credibility. Can they handle these challenges?
That's a big part of it, yeah.
So what are some things you would look at besides just, whether they meet that deadline or not?
Well, I'd definitely be, digging into their earnings report, seeing if they're still showing strong growth, if they're making progress in the DLC market.
Okay, so the numbers still matter.
Oh, absolutely. But also, just as important, are they being, transparent? Are they communicating clearly with investors?
So even if they meet the deadline, what they say, how they act, that's still going to be crucial for getting people to trust them again.
Exactly. Meeting the deadline, that's just one step. They need to show that they're committed to, to transparency, to doing things the right way.
And this AI market, it's moving so fast. How does that play into all this?
That's a really good point, because with AI, things change so quickly. Any delays can be really costly.
Right, they could fall behind.
Exactly. And their competitors, they're not standing still. They're constantly innovating. So SMCI has to, they have to prove that they can keep up.
So even if they deal with these immediate problems, they still have this bigger challenge of staying ahead in this crazy fast-moving market.
It's a constant race.
All right, so I think we've laid out the opportunities, the risks with SMCI. It's a lot to take in.
It is. It's a complex situation.
But before we wrap up, I want to circle back to DLC for a minute.
Okay, sure.
It seems like it could be, a real game changer. But what are some of the hurdles for getting more people to adopt it?
Well, one of the big ones is the cost. DLC systems, they're usually more expensive to set up than traditional air cooling.
So that could be a problem for some companies, especially if they're on a tight budget.
Exactly. And another thing is, some people might see it as too complicated. They might be hesitant to switch to a new technology that they think is going to be, harder to manage.
So there needs to be more education, more showing people how DLC can actually save them money in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. SMCI and the other companies in this space, they need to make a really strong case for why DLC is the future.
Right. It's not just some niche thing. It's what data centers need to keep up with AI.
Exactly.
So SMCI, they're facing challenges on like multiple fronts here.
Yeah, it's a lot.
They need to rebuild trust after this whole accounting thing. They're going to meet that Nasdaq deadline, and then they have to convince everyone that they're going to be around for the long haul in this constantly changing AI world.
It's a tough spot to be in, but it also kind of shows you how complicated it is to invest in a sector like this, AI, it's high growth, it's driven by technology.
So there's huge potential, but also a lot of risk.
Yeah, and you really have to, you have to think carefully about it.
And for our listener who's trying to decide what to do about SMCI,
yeah,
it sounds like this February 25th, it's a big deal, but it's not the only thing they should be thinking about.
It's a piece of the puzzle, but not the whole picture.
Right. You have to look at everything, the potential, the risks, and then decide if you believe in SMCI, if you think they can overcome these challenges.
It's a judgment call for sure.
So where do we go from here?
Yeah.
What are some final thoughts as our listener, as they try to figure out what to do about this investment?
Investing, it's rarely like a simple yes or no,
No,
It's about like weighing all these different things and figuring out what makes sense for you for your own situation.
Right, your risk tolerance, your goals, all that.
Exactly. And with SMCI, I mean, you've got a company that's playing in this really exciting market, this AI market.
It is booming.
And they've got these partnerships, the technology, they can build these custom solutions. That gives them a real advantage.
It does, but then they hit this snag,
Yeah.
with the accounting stuff.
Yeah. And that definitely shook things up.
He made people nervous. So now everyone's kind of holding their breath, waiting to see what happens on February 25th.
It's a big test for them.
If they can file those reports, everything looks good. I mean, that could be huge.
It could really turn things around.
But if they delay again, or if there's something bad in those reports,
that would not be good.
So what advice would you give our listener? They're trying to make sense of all this.
I'd say, look beyond the headlines, the short-term stuff, focus on the fundamentals, look at their business, their position in the market, the long-term potential of their technology.
It's about the bigger picture.
Yeah, and it's not just about numbers and data. It's also about, the leadership, the vision. Can they actually execute?
And can they walk the walk?
Do you believe in SMCI's management team? Do you trust them to get through this and really make the most of this AI opportunity?
Those are the tough questions our listener has to grapple with.
It's a fascinating case study. It really is.
It shows you that even companies with a lot of promise, they can still hit these unexpected roadblocks.
And that investing in these innovative sectors, it comes with a lot of uncertainty.
Like sailing into uncharted waters.
Exactly. You might find treasure, but you might also, run into a storm.
So you got to have a plan. You got to know how much risk you're comfortable with, and you got to be ready to adjust as things change.
Be flexible. Be informed.
Well, I think that about wraps up our deep dive into Supermicro computer.
Yeah, I think so.
It's a lot to think about.
It is, but hopefully we've given you the information you need to make your own decision about SMCI.
There's no right or wrong answer here.
It's all about what makes sense for you.
Do your research, trust your gut, and remember, the best investment you can make is in your own knowledge.
Yeah, learn as much as you can, and don't be afraid to get different perspectives, challenge your own ideas.
The more you know, the better off you'll be. Well said. And to our listener, we hope this deep dive has been helpful, and good luck with your investing.
Happy investing.